What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the Touchline Talk Show. Thanks so much for joining. Really good show in store for you tonight. We're going to get to some more Premier League action. We're going to play a game based on the opening weekend of the season. And we're going to do that first, but later in the show, we're going to talk Barcelona, provide an update on the chaos that is ensuing as a result of all of these levers they're trying to pull, and just the latest updates as to what's going on there, and talk some MLS transfers, the end of the transfer window with the All-Star game taking place tonight. Didn't get to talk about that over the weekend or even last week on this show because so much of preparing for the European season with the Premier League starting last weekend. So I wanted to go back. Thought the All-Star break was it's not even really a break, but the All-Star game was a good point to talk about some of the developments in Major League Soccer as well. But first, we're going to play a game of buy or sell based on the Premier League opening weekend. Now, the idea here is buying or selling the performances of specific teams. So this isn't necessarily buying or selling the teams themselves. It is buying or selling what we saw from them on this opening weekend. How realistic is the performance they put in, the result they got moving forward? So we've got 3 on buying, 3 on selling. The first team on buying, and I talked about this on the weekly roundup, but want to dive in a little bit more here, is Manchester United. I buy the way the game unfolded, with the fact that they did dominate possession at times. There was a portion in the first half where they looked like an Erik ten Hag coach team. Then they gave up a goal, and they didn't react well. I buy all of that. I buy the fact they looked better with an actual striker on the field. Now, part of that had to do with the fact Anthony Martial was not available and Cristiano Ronaldo was your only striker you could put out there. Yes, Marcus Rashford could play that position, but at this point I would argue he's much more of a winger. So you got Christian Eriksen playing as the false 9, and unsurprisingly, when you put the creative midfielder in the midfield and give him somebody to pass the ball up the field to, it looks better. I buy the struggles they had defensively and the poor midfield performance. They looked exactly like Manchester United last season from a sort of overall narrative of how this game played out. And the team itself looked very similar because, yes, you got a couple new players in there, but Christian Eriksen was playing in a strange position. Lisandro Martinez is a center back who can only impact the game so much and had never played in the Premier League before. So you get the same thing. And I said in the weekly roundup video, it'll probably look a little bit different. I have faith that Erik ten Hag is going to turn this team into something that looks more like him. But that doesn't mean the results change. And the one part that I want to dive into here specifically that I did not talk much about on Monday's video is the base of that midfield. I was really impressed with Fred at times last season. And Scott McTominay, every once in a while, has a really good game. The question has always been, are those two guys good enough to anchor a midfield that allows Manchester United to get where Manchester United wants to be, expects to be, should be? They haven't really done anything to definitively show the answer is yes. And then you get performances like the one on Sunday, where it really looks like the answer is no. And if you ask anybody right now, the answer is no. And if you're looking at what is, from a personnel standpoint, what is this Manchester United team lacking more than anything else? It's a midfielder who can connect the back line to the attacking 4, 5, 6, whatever it ends up being. who can get the ball from Lisandro Martinez and Harry Maguire to Christian Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes. That's not something McTominay or Fred do particularly well. And then you've got the turnovers. McTominay in particular had a really rough game. And so now it sounds like Adrien Rabiot is coming in. And I understand that's Manchester United's solution. Adrien Rabiot, really? And yes, would this be much more ideal if this was Frankie de Jong? Sure. But Adrien Rabiot is going to give you something those two holding midfielders don't have right now. He's much better technically than both of them. He gives you something going forward. And not just from a goal-scoring perspective, but an actual helping build up play, which, again, is the single most glaring issue with this team. I kind of like this, if I'm being honest. Again, this is all relatively speaking. Is Adrien Rabiot the solution to Manchester United's problems? Of course not. And are there valid off-field concerns about how this is actually going to play out with everything going on with Ronaldo? Absolutely. But if you're looking for somebody who can come in and make this team better quickly, to me, Adrien Rabiot fits that description. So we'll see if they get this over the line. It certainly sounds like it's going to happen. But from a what am I buying perspective, I'm buying everything we saw. And I do believe Adrien Rabiot is going to help one of those issues, which is the train wreck that was the base of that midfield. First team I'm selling, Bournemouth. Terrific win. Massive to start with 3 points, to not put yourself immediately in the relegation zone. And then we actually look at the numbers. Shout out to FBref.com, Football Reference. That's where I'm getting this data. Love to look at their stuff. It's just absolutely fantastic and really helps paint a picture. So all this stuff I'm going to reference in here with all these teams, courtesy of Football Reference. Bournemouth scored 1.5 more goals than they were expected to. That was tied for the second largest margin in the Premier League behind Spurs, who have a bunch of lethal finishers, so it's not exactly surprising they are exceeding their expected goals total. The only teams that had fewer shots than Bournemouth were West Ham, who were playing Manchester City, so you automatically get a pass, and Nottingham Forest, who were also playing their first game back in the Premier League since, Brennan Johnson was alive. And we're in a difficult spot. We're going to talk about the team they played in just a second here. It was a terrific win. XG is not everything. And, it's not like they beat another newly promoted side. It's not like they beat a Southampton where many people are picking them to get relegated. They did do something impressive against a team many people are high on. It's also a team that finished 14th and was 14th with Philippe Coutinho. He didn't, when he came in, as I talked about in the season preview, he didn't actually move them up the table at all. Now, what they did do is they beat the teams they were supposed to. That obviously did not happen opening weekend. My question with Bournemouth is still the same. It is, who is scoring these goals? Kiefer Moore gets one. But is Kiefer Moore going to go score 12? There was just nothing in that performance that made me question my thinking about Bournemouth. That's the simplest way I can put this. I'm selling the performance. To me, that's just what happens sometimes. It's one of those, You hang in there defensively, you find a way to get a goal, then that changes things, allows you to get a second, and all of a sudden, that game is, the scoreline looks different than it actually should based on the balance of play. So I am selling Bournemouth. Mentioned them a second ago. The second team I am buying, Newcastle. Very quietly. And again, opponent has to be part of the context here. I get that. But if you're looking at the 3 promoted teams, some people would pick Fulham as the one most likely to stay up. Others would pick Forest. They're coming in with some talent. Newcastle had the most shots in the Premier League, the most shots on target, and the most shot-creating actions. They were second in progressive passes behind Manchester City. They dominated this game. It was played almost entirely in Forest's half. They were creating chances. They ultimately took some chances. Nottingham Forest did not come anywhere close to really posing a danger. Newcastle were outstanding. And so, to me, this is not as much about this one performance and saying, oh, this means they're going to challenge for top 4. It's much more about, okay, you came off of what you did in the second half of last season, specifically in 2022. And then you came back and did exactly what you were supposed to in a week where that can't be said of every single team. You know, Manchester City did fine. Liverpool obviously dropped points. Chelsea were fine. Weren't exactly thrilling in attack. Manchester United lost. Arsenal were pretty good. Spurs were very good. And you start, West Ham offered very little in attack. Leicester blew a 2-goal lead. Aston Villa lost. You're just sort of going down the list of these teams that you're expecting to be. Brighton had obviously a very good performance. But you're just going down this list of teams you're expecting to be up there in the 5, 6, 7 range, competing with the big 6. And Newcastle started as well as any of them, if not better than all of them. Again, when you see them do this against better opposition, what can they do against the big 6? That all is still, the jury's still out on all that. But look at what Newcastle did and compare that to what Liverpool did. From a being ready to go, taking control of the game, and just dominating minute 1 to minute 90. It was an excellent, excellent performance. I'm buying it. I don't exactly know what that means yet. I still haven't decided what I think Newcastle's ceiling is. But that team we saw is the team Newcastle is. I buy Eddie Howe. I buy this squad. They're still trying to upgrade it. You're now hearing potential Christian Pulisic rumors. We'll see what the squad ends up looking like at the end of the transfer window. But even as presently constructed, absolutely buying what we saw, buying Newcastle as a legit top 7 team that may have something to say in the top 4 race. Not willing to go there quite yet, though. Second team I'm selling, unsurprisingly, Liverpool. As much of a quote-unquote disaster as that was, they still finished with the 3rd highest expected goals total in the league. Virgil van Dijk had one of the worst games of his career. They just started really poorly. And Fulham came out with an incredible amount of energy and really made life difficult. And it was kind of too late by the time Liverpool actually got into the game and started being on the front foot and being the team in the ascendancy. Then they get the goal back and you start feeling like, okay, they're going to be fine. They're going to find a way to win this. Then they concede the penalty. Then they get the goal back again. And then Jordan Henderson nearly does win it on a day where they were not good in stoppage time against a team that is coming back into the Premier League. Terrific fan base. That stadium is electric. These things just happen sometimes. And they still got a point. It's not like they lost. Now, they didn't deserve to win this game, and they still very nearly did. But the biggest part of this for me and why I'm selling this as a, glaring warning sign, above all else, is A, I don't think Van Dijk's going to have that happen again, and B, Darwin Núñez was spectacular, as he was in the Community Shield. He is a perfect fit, and I talked about this from the beginning, but now you can actually see it. Just stylistically, he is such a good fit as a number 9 in this system. because he just gets on the end of everything. And that is, right, when you got Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson and Mo Salah and Luis Diaz, that is exactly what you want. He just finds a way to get to the ball and to put the ball in the net. It's very basic, but it's obviously the most difficult thing to do in this sport. If he struggled and it was really looking like he was having a hard time fitting into this team and this system, that's when I would get a little bit worried. And it's way too early to give up on him. But I would be hesitant to completely sell this performance and result the way I am if you had the poor overall performance plus Darwin Nunez struggling. He was terrific when he came on. They got it going eventually. It was just a little bit too little too late. And they were also playing an excellent opponent on this given day. Fulham were very, very, very good. So they are still right there with Manchester City. My thoughts have not changed on them one bit. Granted, I did do this the year it all fell apart and kind of jumped off the bandwagon late. I'm just going to ride with Jurgen Klopp until I have a reason not to. And what I saw against Fulham was nowhere near enough for me to really be concerned about them at all, in all honesty. Speaking of Fulham, final team I'm buying. 2 reasons. In addition to the fact I think Marco Silva gets a little bit of a bad rap, and the fact, as I talked about when I was doing the season preview, that, by the way, they were so much better last year than they ever have been coming up. They obliterated goal scoring records. That doesn't just go away overnight. But actually seeing them in the Premier League. 2 things. One, talked about this a little bit, but Alexander Mitrovic was fantastic against an elite defense. I mean, he consistently got the better of Virgil van Dijk and was a pest all game long. And he was really good off the ball too. If you've got a fit Alexander Mitrovic doing all of the running, the pressing, the being annoying, in addition to scoring goals and having confidence in the Premier League, because that's the other part of this for him too, is just putting those goals away against one of the best defensive teams he's going to see. In his very first game back in the Premier League, has to do wonders for his confidence. Because he knows as well as everybody else, he has struggled to consistently produce in the Premier League in his previous stint. He looked like a different player. Again, it is 90 minutes. This is about consistency because you know he's got these kind of performances in him. But seeing what he did on and off the ball, you've got to feel really good about that. And the second part, Fulham had 36 interceptions in this game. That was 10 more than any other team in the Premier League opening weekend. If Mitrovic is playing like this, or anywhere close to this, and they are as active, as aggressive, and as fundamentally sound defensively as they were, and yes, Liverpool ended up getting behind them a little bit in the second half, but again, this is Liverpool. You got to keep your expectations in check. If they put this kind of defensive performance together and come out with the energy and intensity they did, they're staying up. And Tim Ream was talking about basically, yeah, we did exactly what we wanted to. We didn't really have to change our game plan at all. That's a pretty terrifying thought for the other teams that are trying to avoid relegation. If day one, Marco Silva has this team able to execute against Liverpool the way they want to. For all of those reasons, I'm buying this result. I'm all aboard. Again, I don't know if that means they can finish, 13th, 14th or something. But if you're asking me today, after these games, to pick who gets relegated, Fulham is not in my 3 teams. Final performance I am selling. Crystal Palace. Was not a great first half, particularly the first, 20, 30 minutes. They did grow into the game, control portions of the second half. Arsenal have struggled to do at times, just couldn't really continue to keep command of the game and dictate the tempo once they went ahead. This is the difference between what you saw from Newcastle, who were absolutely able to do that, and what you saw from Arsenal, albeit against a tougher opponent. But Crystal Palace completed 508 passes to Arsenal's 378, and they're coming off of this very strange split preseason where their guys haven't been able to play together. That's a game you can lose and still be the team I and many other people expect Crystal Palace to be. And B, I'm just not sure they were really 2 goals worse than Arsenal. And Arsenal were pretty good. Crystal Palace certainly didn't deserve to win that game or anything. But again, just going back to, did I see anything to change my opinion about this team and what Patrick Vieira has going on? No, not at all. They need to figure out the striker position. But other than that, they were fine. They played a team that was better and they lost. It happens. It happens quite frequently, actually. So that's the final team I'm selling. There's nothing I can pinpoint and say, I am now concerned about that, and that was something I wasn't concerned about a week ago. Still think they're a top half of the table team. Still think they have every opportunity to finish better than last season.